Tesla is peaking up into the green again after starting out in the red by a fair amount, jumping up into the green, dropping back. Anyway, it's been a little choppy this morning. I'm not sure that we have a clear indication of where the market is headed this morning either. The market also opened up pretty much where it was in the pre-market and even the overnights, and then has been steadily climbing. This does not include the bonds, however. The 10-year bond is down, and with the interest rate, of course, the yield being up in that case. And there's a couple, maybe some reasons for that. We'll talk about that in a minute. So now we'll see how things play out the rest of the day. But anyway, what could be causing Tesla to be running ahead of the market this morning? Let's take a look at a couple possibilities. This is from Tesla Ming, now a regular contributor to my analysis. He says that Tesla China has officially sold out its Model Ys entire production capacity for 2025. So they're sold out for the month of December. The delivery schedule for both the standard and long-range Model Y, including all-wheel drive and rear-wheel drive, has been pushed back to 2026. So that could be a possible thing that people are looking at. Farziness this morning says Tesla FSD search interest in the US is the highest it's been in at least 5 years. Okay, 5 years, FSD search interest way, way up. Then we have this. We have Michael Burry this morning turns his sights on Tesla. He called it ridiculously overvalued. The market seems to be shrugging that off, however. I'm not clear that his words have a ton of weight anymore. He's been wrong way more than he's been right. Since he guessed since he was right about the housing market 2008, so a very, very long time ago. This could be, though, a contrarian thing, almost, like, oh, if Michael Burry is going short, the market should go long. Now, this is probably not one of the reasons why Tesla is doing well this morning. A lot of reports this morning about European sales. Tesla vehicles down in various European countries, France and Spain. But if you take a look at the overall 7 nations or 8 nations that are showing so far, Denmark's increases make up for all of those decreases because Denmark sells so many more Teslas. We don't have complete information. Of course, we don't have Canada. We don't have Turkey. So what's happening in Berlin? How many cars are they shipping? Right now, I would say that it's probably flat, maybe up a little, maybe down a little, but there is a second shift. No indication the second shift has been pulled back. Again, I'm going to continue to harp on this. Tesla they're not offering any special deals in Europe. They're not offering any special deals in China, which maybe it's obvious for China. And they're not offering any special deals in the United States. Now we're at December 1. This would indicate that Tesla's sales maybe are doing okay. Now, the vice president in charge of international, in terms of all sales, well, no, I guess Europe and the United States is none other than Elon Musk. So you would expect sales to be doing better in Europe and the United States if he's in charge, but we'll see. There also seems to be some kind of shipping concentration going on. I don't fully understand it in Europe. It would seem like you'd be able to kind of ship a few here and a few there, and others, the stuff that has to go offshore. Of course, you got to ship the Canadian stuff early. You got to ship stuff to Taiwan, stuff to Israel, stuff. I'm not sure 100% which markets are being covered by Berlin, but some of that does have to get on a ship, and it does take longer. So you do that earlier in the quarter. But you would seem that by November, places like France would be seeing increases. But who knows? Maybe they'll see increases in December. Anyway, I'm at the limit of what I understand right now. The other thing is that we're not hearing anything from our friend. Yeah, he's been out of commission now for a couple of months. I can't remember his name. Anyway, we have a limitation on our knowledge right now because of a failure to report in one sector. This is Randy Kirk, by the way. As my memory is gone this morning, I do remember my name. That's good. And I want to remind you that there's a special right now, a special on the book. If you want to buy it from me, if you want the audio version, you want to buy it from me instead of from Amazon. Now, it's not going to be an audio book. It's going to be an MP3 with my voice rather than the voice that was provided by Kindle in the audiobook version. If you're out of the country, you're almost certainly going to want to buy it this way. $20. I'm sorry, $15 is what you would normally pay. Only $10 if you buy it directly from me, and you also get a PDF with that of the book so that you can see the charts and graphs and pictures. Anyway, $10. Information below. Send it to paypal.me/Randy Kirk. We also have a special on for one day. This all ends today. Special on the Cybertruck bottle opener at $20, no matter how many you buy. 20 for one, 40 for two, etc. Same place to send the money. All right. The market, especially the bond market this morning, might be responding to 𝐂𝐦𝐚𝐻86 saying, no, not because 𝐂𝐦𝐚𝐻86 said it, but because it's true. This chart should terrify every portfolio manager on earth. Japan's 10-year government bond yield just hit 1.84%. This is the highest since April of 2008. 2008. The up 11.19% in a single session. Now, that doesn't mean it went from -9 to positive 1.84, but rather it went from 1.7 or something to 1.84. You need to understand what this means. For 3 decades, Japan was the anchor with zero rates. We've talked about the Japan carry trade multiple times here on the show. I won't take the time to do that this morning. But I will say that I was asking Grok, what did Grok think was going on today with regard to the bond market? Why are the bonds up so strongly? The yields up so strongly this morning? And Grok did believe that the Japan carry trade could be a significant impactor there. I'll talk about the other impactor here in a minute. S&P manufacturing PMI. What is PMI? Purchasing Managers Index. It means it's a survey. It is not hard numbers. It is a survey. You got to take a little bit with a grain of salt, but the markets do pay attention to this survey. All right, operating conditions in the U.S. manufacturing sector improved for the 4th successive month in November. A solid rise in production and a further increase in employment was reported as confidence in the outlook strengthened. However, current sector performance was limited by a considerable slowdown in demand growth, in part due to weak sales, which in turn contributed to an unprecedented rise in inventories. Inflationary pressure, meanwhile, remained historically elevated. Tariffs were frequently mentioned by the panelists as having driven input costs higher, although the degree of pass-through by manufacturers was weaker in November, with selling price inflation among the lowest of the year so far among intense competition and weak demand, although they just said sales are up. Okay, the headline index from the report, the seasonally adjusted S&P Global U.S. Manufacturing Purchasing Managers Index, recorded 52.2. That was down. Wait a minute. Theirs told us it was doing better. Anyways, it's above 50. That's the key. So above 50, that means expansion. So it's down to 52.2 in November, down from 52.5, but a solid, albeit slightly slower, improvement in operating conditions. Above 50 for the 4th consecutive month. Now, growth in November was underpinned by the best rise in output, partly reflective of a rise in new orders. I think they're just repeating everything. Asian economies, the decline in overall new export orders was the steepest since July. In some instances, firms noted sales volumes were weaker than expected, and with output rising solidly, the net impact was a lot of increased inventory. Chris Williamson, chief business economist, said, although the headline PMI signaled a further expansion, manufacturing sector gets more worrying the more you scratch under the surface. The main impetus came from a strong rise in factory production, but growth in new order inflows slowed. Combination of sustained robust production growth alongside weaker than expected sales led to worrying steep rise in unsold inventories. All right, I said that like 5 times. Profit margins are meaningfully coming under pressure. And encouragingly, manufacturers were growing more optimistic about the year ahead, with the ending of the government shutdown helping lift confidence. Optimism is being fueled by hopes of improved policy support, including lower interest rates as well as greater political stability, although it's clear that uncertainty remains elevated and a drag on business growth in many firms. Now, that was the S&P PMI, manufacturing PMI. Now we're going to do the ISM manufacturing PMI. Economic activity in the manufacturing sector contracted in November for the 9th consecutive month, followed by a 2-month expansion preceded by 26 straight months of contraction, according to the report. The manufacturing PMI registered 48.2% in November, 8.5% decline compared to the reading of 48.7 in October. The overall economy continued an expansion for the 67th month after a 1 month of contraction. In April 2020, a manufacturing PMI above 42.3 over a period of time generally indicates an expansion in the overall economy. Now, later this month, we'll get the S&P and the services PMI from both organizations. A new orders index contracted for a third straight month in November, followed 1 month of growth. The November reading of the production index was higher, and then inventories, they got the same result on that one. That was good. It's like when they don't get the same result, you're like, okay. Now, I did do an analysis on that a while back. Many of you might have caught this. 𝐷 says that these are really different groups that they're pulling from, different size companies, different industries. So then it's not as surprising that they're getting 2 different sets of information. The employer index on this one registered 44%. That was down 2%, so less hiring. The new export orders index reading of 46.2% was 1.7% points higher. See, you get all these differences. The previous one said lower. All right. I think we're going to leave that now. We'll be done with the manufacturing. Remember, manufacturing's currently only about 30% of the overall market. So what else could be impacting the bond market this morning and the overall stock market? Well, I'm of the belief, although I couldn't get 𝐷 to agree with me, so maybe I'm wrong. The market, I feel like the market is looking at Black Friday's numbers as being too hot and are putting bonds up a little bit this morning because they're maybe a tad more worried that the cut won't come next Wednesday, a week from Wednesday. And so that I think that could be part of it. And then maybe the overall markets are responding to the same thing, but as they're down a little bit this morning. Now, I asked 𝐷 about the betting markets, and at least at the point that we were talking about then, the betting markets were still very, very much saying that the cuts are in. And so they're not seeing the same thing I am in terms of a very strong sales number on Friday. Inflation numbers by Truflation are approaching 2%, very close to 2%, with food at home heading towards 0. Utilities are the huge headwind, up 10% or more, like 11% this morning. Natural gas is up like 45% or whatever, but electricity is also up at about 4.35. So we've got the food at home, gasoline is down, education is down, all kinds of things are down, but we've got the overall Truflation sitting this morning, the overnight at 2.44, with goods all the way down to 2.06. The core sitting at 2.21. Services, however, popping. Services starting to pop, which would suggest the labor costs are higher. Services at 2.76, so that's what's pulling the inflation index back up a little bit this morning. But the PCE is still sitting at 2.09. There you go. So that's and then how about Trump? Well, Trump has been sitting in a range of 45 to 47% for the last week. You're going to see lots of headlines suggesting that his numbers are just horrible. They're down in the 30s. Well, if you believe those polls, those are the ones that got the presidential contest wrong the last 3 times in a row, whereas our friends at Rasmussen, which is what I rely on, Rasmussen has been getting the presidential polls right 3 years in a row. Three, not years, but 3 presidential competitions in a row. All right. So, Troy Teslike, that's who I was talking about a minute ago. It came back. Troy Teslike out of commission again. Nothing, no Sunday report. I got a note of some kind this morning in my email about that, but I'll check that in a minute. All right. Where are we now? Well, just pick the minute if you want to know where Tesla is, because it is all over the place right now, down 0.35 at 428.68. But the high of the day has been 433.66 and the low 425. It just is like this, jumping all over the place. And the headline in the Apple news this morning is the Michael Burry headline. So who knows what impact that's having. All right. The Dow Jones also now, after moving close to zero, close to break even, it is now down 0.65 again, almost where we started the morning. The NASDAQ is headed back down a little bit at 0.61. So that could be Tesla again following the market, but more extremely. That's not unusual, or maybe even leading the market sometimes, I feel. S&P 500 down 0.54, again, almost the same trend. We get the Magnificent Seven down, except for NVIDIA. NVIDIA right now up 1.12, but still sitting at 179. Feel like that's a really, really good price for NVIDIA. The VIX up and been moving around this morning. We're right now down nicely to 17.17. So that should be good for the markets. And the Cathie Woods, which were also started off down, were popping up along with the market, are now back down again, in some cases more than they were at the beginning of the day. All right. So like I said, the bonds, not good. Up 6.6 basis points in one session to 4.085. That puts us almost, we're getting like 9 basis points above the recent low. So maybe that's the carry trade. I don't know. Maybe it's Black Friday. I don't know, but those are 2 possibilities. We've got oil this morning up 92 cents, sitting at still under 60 though, at 59.47. And natural gas actually down a little, down 1%, but at $4.80. Gold, which was up a lot earlier, is now not up nearly as much, only up $1.30 or 0.03% at 4,256. Silver up more, 1.16. More reporting this morning about shortages of silver in a rather with the demand being up. So $57.80. Copper up 0.51% at 520, call it 530. We've got the yen up the dollar up against the yen this morning, down against the euro. So mixed market again. Bitcoin taking a powder, down 6,400 this morning, call it 85,000. I'm wondering whether it needs a complete cleansing before it goes up again, or maybe not. Maybe it's not going to be going back up. I don't know. I know so little about Bitcoin, but I will say that Tom Lee has said that he expects it to go to 77,000 before it bounces. So that might be what the case is now. Ethereum down even a higher percentage, down 8.65% at 2,767. Again, approaching 50% down from its recent highs. Okay, you've got later today, you have got the regular schedule, Larry Goldberg, followed by Brian White. I know what Brian White and I are going to talk about. It is going to be so much fun and so interesting. I think we'll be going down a path that nobody else is talking about, but that I do think is very, very important right now. In fact, I believe tonight we're going to be talking about Cybertruck, and tomorrow we're going to be talking about FSD. Again, I think we're going to be taking a completely different look, but I think a valuable look at both of those subject matters. Okay, and then let me remind you again, these are on sale for $20 a piece, only for today. You can buy one of these for $20 instead of $25, save $5. This is my Cyber Monday sale. And then on the book, you can get the audio book for $10 instead of the $15 that you pay on Amazon. And if you're outside the United States, that may be the only way you can buy the audio book. So take advantage of today. tomorrow it will be $15 again for this audio book that you can buy from me. All right. I think, should we go back and see whether Tesla is above or below the line here in terms of green or red? Dropping even a little more, down 0.42% at 428.35, but that's above the overnights where it was sitting mostly under 425. So 428, that's better. I don't know. I'm always looking for an optimistic way to end the show. It has been great talking to you.